Welcome back to the channel. I've been helping singles since 2020 find love and marriage, and I try to weed through a lot of the pain that is, even spurred by social media, that a lot of men are going through pain, and then they're looking at a lot of stuff that kind of feeds into that, and then there's a lot of women that go through pain out here, and they're trying to weed through that. So I try to be balanced. I try to talk about things from both sides a lot on this particular channel. And I know one thing, every once in a while, especially when somebody's brand new to the channel, they don't really know, kind of how I feel about a lot of different things. And so sometimes it shows up in the comments. So I decided as we go into 2025, I was going to try to go into the comments a little bit more, talk about some of those things that I see down there. If I see something that kind of, gives me a little bit more of a pause, and actually talk about some of those things. So if that is what you're down for, this is what this video is about. So it'll be fun because I'm about to dive into these comments and then give my own comment to some of these comments. So the first guy says, I took a young lady on a coffee date for our first date once. While we were there for a while, we enjoyed each other so much. We went and had lunch after. Don't sleep on coffee dates. And I think the reason why, he said this is because I've always said I don't necessarily encourage people to lean into coffee dates on their very first date. But again, I'm not against them. And I think people, like I say, they can see one thing and then they, because like I say, I'll sit here and explain forever and ever and ever. But for me, I don't lean into that. I like to show a woman at least a restaurant, in the beginning for the first date. That's what I like to do. But I've had several women, to tell me, even offer to say, okay, let's go on a coffee date or even go on a walk. I've actually been on a walk for two women that was actually their very first date. So I'm not against you doing anything on your first date. It's really just about, getting out there, meeting the person, actually talking to them. And I definitely encourage a lot of women, if you're serious about marriage, don't believe that the man has to spend a lot of money on you for the first date. It really is about connection. And that's another reason why I'm always saying it's really those first couple of months, generally I'll say 90 days, where as a woman or as a man, you should be figuring out whether or not this person is good for you. Because I'll just be real, when I am even at day 61, I am still trying to figure out whether or not this woman is quote unquote good enough for me to actually be in a relationship with. So I know some people by then they're in the relationship, they 100%, but it's all about what works well for you. And I know what works well for me is I want to really get to know you. I want to really understand what you're about. And then I'm also going with my natural energy as to say, okay, how much do I want to call you? How much do I want to spend time with you? How much, can I go 2 days really without thinking about you? And if I can go 2 or 3 days without thinking about you, then I know deep down inside I'm really not that interested. And so those are the types of things that I'm looking for. And I'm just not going to know that within the first, honestly, 2 or 3 weeks. Generally speaking, it's going to take a little while. And then sometimes, I might not necessarily have a 100% connection with the woman, but that does not necessarily mean she's not a good woman for me. The same thing for the women out there. Just because you don't have a 100% connection with the man within 60 to 90 days doesn't really mean you don't have something there. And like I've said before, a lot of women, they will make the excuse that I married someone who wasn't my type. About 50% of women will end up saying that once they get married. And so that's another reason why sometimes you do need to give people time, even if you're not quite connecting in the beginning. At least that is, my advice on that. Okay, so I did want to say 2 women also agree with the coffee date. They think that is, where to go on that. So they really don't have a problem. And I've always said that a woman who's really serious about marriage, she's not going to mind any kind of date because it's not about the money. And now I see literally at least 3 women that have said that. And again, that's what I'm always trying to tell men is that there are lots of really great women out here. And it's really about what the woman wants. Some women literally want you to give them this huge romantic gesture because they've seen it in movies or whatever, or maybe their friend was able to receive that. But in reality, especially for most of the women, that's not going to happen on the first date. I mean, honestly, it's like I've said. I mean, if I was a millionaire and I just thought the woman was absolutely gorgeous, then I might be willing to do it, because $1,000 to me, if I'm a millionaire, it doesn't mean anything. But if I am just with my average job and stuff like that, I'm not trying to take you on a whirlwind tour, on the very first date, because it really doesn't mean anything and I don't even know who you are yet. One thing that's really interesting is this gentleman says, I notice how a lot of women like to lead with hi or how you're doing. And if he doesn't have a smile on his face, it's, are you okay? The adult dialogue must stay within how we approach each other, which is actually interesting, because I don't really get a lot of men that actually talk like that. That usually happens in reverse. It honestly might mean that a lot of women might find you attractive and they're just trying to see your smile. So I do find that, I know for me, when I, joke with a woman, I try to get her to smile, it's usually because I think she's already attractive, but I'm trying to see, does she have a pretty smile, or can I get her out of the funk that she's going through right at that moment? So the women really might just be flirting with you and that's really what's going on. But, it might, just kind of work a little different. So, hey, it is what it is. So here's a guy, he actually put this directly to me. He says, look at the video by Ron Wills titled Women Can't Be Both Independent and Against the Concept of 50-50. I think this is something that a lot of men don't even think about, and it goes right over your head, which allows women to keep running game and having men to foot the bill for all of the dates while she holds down a good paying job and takes care of herself. It would be cool to have your take on this. Well, first of all, I'll be honest, I like Ron Wills. I've talked about him in a couple of other videos. I actually think that he is a very brilliant man, and I'll be honest, before I even started my channel, I was watching his channel. See, a lot of people are in love with Kevin Samuels, but Ron Wills was out way before Kevin Samuels. And Ron had an understanding of women that was unrivaled by anybody actually on social media to me at that time that I was watching. And Ron came out, way before people started talking about red pill or anything like that. So I ran into Ron right as I was coming out of my divorce. And so he was like the main person I was watching. And it was interesting because he would basically place women in what he called octanes. All right. And for the ladies watching, he did the same thing for men as well. And there was 5 different octanes that he would talk about. Now, I'm not going to go into his vision of them, but they kind of line up when I'm talking about instinct energy, thinking energy, and heart energy. Those are the things I talk about on this channel. And then I talk about that you could be a hybrid between the two. So you end up with 6 different personalities. So according to Rom, there's 5 different personalities of women. For me, there's 6 different personalities of women, but it's very similar in the way that we see women, right? So when you're dealing with the higher octane, that's what Rom would say, and then also, what I would say instinct energy. Those are really more of the manipulators anyway. Not all women are going to manipulate. I just want to make sure I say that. And I'm always saying as well, we have to look at ourselves and say, why are we attracted to women that are going to manipulate us? Or why are we attracted to a certain person over here? And I've dated like 2 women that were really along that line of manipulation. And one of them, she really probably would have married me if I stayed in the, game long enough with her. But, I was the one that broke it off. But, the other one, she was definitely down to 100% manipulate. Even when, she tried to put me in the friend zone, she still tried to lean on me for a lot of things, right? So I definitely think that. Now, when it comes to the whole 50-50, versus independent, I don't date women that are independent. Like I've said that before. When a woman starts talking about independent, and even Kevin Samuels, talked about this since we're talking about other people. Kevin's thing was, and you can probably find this video somewhere, I'm not sure where it is, but he talked about all the time, if a woman says she's independent to him 3 times, it's like, she's basically swinging a bat, 3 strikes, you're out. And with me, what I'll try to do is I'll have a very soft conversation about it. Generally, if I hear her say the word, I'll try to have a soft conversation to try to get an understanding. because I recognize that some women believe that they are, not using the word in the way that a man would understand it. Because I've learned that some words women will say, but they don't really mean in the way that men have interpreted that word. So if a woman says, look, I want to be, submissive under my man, I want my man to lead me, but I'm out here in this world right now and I have to be independent. That's totally different than a woman saying, I 100% am an independent woman. I'm a boss chick. I'm doing my own thing. So those are really two totally different women. And I'm always going to have that soft conversation to find out, okay, what do you mean when you say the word independent? Now, when it comes to 50-50, relationships, again, I think it goes back to how you're dating. Like with my original marriage, it was more, at least I was going in thinking it was going to be 50-50. It was not 50-50, not even close. But the thing that I learned, through that process is, again, you have to look at the woman and what she believes she's bringing to the table and her energy in bringing it to the table. Because some women really are career driven. Okay. And so when they are career driven, they can tend to be more of a quote unquote 50-50 type of situation. Even if they're not a boss chick, it's just the fact that they really care about their career. They're really pushing that. And so that woman might be able to go 50-50 with you depending upon where her career is. But I'll be honest, for me, I don't really lean towards women that go that way. I find that a lot of times those are the very women that don't put a lot of energy and effort into their family. And I think somebody, either the man or the woman, needs to be putting a lot of attention towards the family. And so I know, because I am very career driven, so I don't necessarily need a woman that's career driven as well. I don't need to be a power couple. So that's one of the things. But if you are an independent woman, I kind of agree with Rom in that, because it does go against the concept. If you are saying, okay, we're splitting the money 50-50, I want 50-50 of the power, then you take every single piece of that with you. So now, okay, you can't be like, well, I want him to pay for everything. I want him to do everything. And then you're saying, I want my own money, I want to have my own power and all this other kind of stuff. It doesn't work in the same argument. Now, I wish people would start talking more about stuff like 60-40 or 75-25, because I honestly think that's really probably more people's relationships. Like for me, if I could get into a 85-15 relationship, to me, that would be great, because I would love for a woman, to have something going on outside of the family, maybe a small business or something she does on the side. And just in case something happens to me, she'll have a way to make money. So I would love that. But at the same time, I prefer for her to have a lot of free time and to be able to point her attention towards the family. Now, I don't think you have to end up like that. I feel like a lot of people can do a more 50-50, type of situation if that's what they want. But I do believe, and I think that's the point that the person is making, is that I do believe that a lot of women are trying to, take advantage. And that's kind of what I was saying a little bit earlier. I had a woman try to do that. Like, she literally told me, she was like, I have my company and I want to push my company. And I was like, that's fine. You can push your company or whatever. And she was like, okay, cool. She got all excited about it. And so she was like, and you would pay the bills. And I was like, yeah, I would pay the bills, but it depends upon how much your company is making. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, if your company is making $15,000 to $20,000 a year, then that's your money. You can keep that money. I'm not going to touch your money, but then you're not going to get a stipend of money from the family. But if that's all you're making, then yeah, you can do that. That's your money. And I'll pay the bills. And, as long as you have enough time to take care of the family, then I'm cool. And she was like, well, what if I really work my business and my business now makes 6 figures? And I was like, then your money is going to come into the family. Now, all that money is coming in and our money is going to come together. And she was like, well, that's not fair. You should be taking care of me 100%. I'm like, no, not when you're making that kind of money. Because when you're making that kind of money, your focus is going to be to start pushing that money. And now you're becoming career driven. And so at that point, is no longer a side gig. It's no longer something you're doing every blue moon. It's something that really is taking your attention. And once it starts to take your attention, then you're not free to work for stuff for the family. So at that point, yes, your money needs to come into the pot, and then you'll get a certain percentage, out of that pot, and that's your spending money. You do whatever you want, and then I'm gonna have, that as well. But she didn't like that because she truly believed that she could push her company to make $60, $70, $80,000 a year. Which honestly, once you get beyond 15 to 20,000, that to me is when your money starts to come into the bigger pot. And so she didn't like that. And so to me, I was like, okay, well, you just got to move on, and do whatever you got to do. And you got to find boo-boo the fool, in my opinion, of a man that's going to spend all of his money, taking care of you while you can go out here and make $100,000 a year or $200,000, whatever it is. And he's never, ever going to ask you for that, because anybody given in that situation, if you put me in that situation, like if I was living with my parents or something, and then they're paying all my bills, and I don't even have to worry about anything. I can 100% focus on building a business. I'm going to be able to build it faster, cleaner, and easier, and I can constantly recycle my money right back into the business. So that just allows me to move, basically much faster, okay, than somebody that is having to be concerned about, okay, how do I pay my bills and build my business and do this and do that? So, I agree, with the essence of what Rom, would be saying. I would think that what he would say in that particular video. Okay, here's another one. I can understand where the young woman at the beginning was coming from. I was married to a North African man, and my experience with foreigners is very different than that with American black men. I'm not discouraged, but as a plus-size, darker-skinned woman with introverted tendencies, there are moments where it feels almost impossible to meet the right man, especially because I don't get out much. I realize the biggest part of the issue is me, and to all of that, add the fact that I have unsubscribed from organized religion, but I do believe in the Bible and stepped out of the proverbial matrix. Very few men I've encountered understand and are ready for that. Also, I think that coffee dates are fine. So there was one lady who was basically saying that she just did not believe in dating American black men. All right. And so, again, a lot of that, I think, goes to the narrative that 70% of black people, both men and women, are raised outside of two-parent homes. So they're basically raised by single moms. And the effect is basically seen in both men and women. And then you put on top of that, you put this concept that we as black people in America, we live in a matriarchy, not a patriarchy. And so now, even if you're a man and you were raised by a single mom, you don't find a lot of male role models to actually help you, understand what it is to be a real man, right? And so I think that's the energy that some black women run into, out here in these dating streets, right? And so that's why I think they're saying, okay, their experience is different. But I've said the same thing. My experience has been different. When I date women from overseas, that, like I said, just being real, that come from Africa, that come from, South America, that come from the Caribbean, they treat me different. They bend over backwards for me. I'm sorry, they just do. And, they literally give me more and, for less effort, and all I really have to do is show up as a man, the man that my daddy taught me to be. And once I do that, then I'm fine. But I find that with a lot of black women, I'll be honest with you, they bypass me anyway, because I don't walk and move in the way that they're used to. Like I've said before, I tend to be a little bit more intellectual. So as I move more towards that, they don't see that as interesting. And I've had at least, probably 3 or 4 women to use the analogy with me that basically says that they thought I was going to be boring, lame, conservative, whatever term they use, but then they actually date me, for the ones that actually are willing to take that leap. And then once they date me, they're like, wow, you're fun and you're cool and you do this and you do that, because they never thought I would be that way, because they're looking from the outside in. And because, I didn't walk with the vibe that they were used to at the very beginning. And that's why I was saying earlier that sometimes you actually have to give people 60 to 90 days, because the vibe is going to be different, right? Per person. And a lot of times, and this is slightly different than what the woman was saying, but sometimes what you have to do is you actually, as a person, if you've been dating, because most of us date the same person in a different body. Okay, let's just be real. So once if that's been happening to you, you have to start dating different types of personalities. And the only way you're going to vibe with those personalities that you're not used to is you have to spend a lot of time with them. Okay, that's the only way. I mean, because you have to understand them. And so for me, if the woman is respectful and she basically seems like, she has a little bit going on for herself, I'll give her 2 or 3 months. I don't have a problem with that. But I'll just be real. Like the 3 women that I dated in 2024, I didn't really vibe with any of them, and 2 of them knew it because I was open and honest. And the third one, me and her found our groove. It took us a while, but we did find our groove, and that's kind of what I'm saying. It took us about 6 weeks to find our groove. So I do think you can make that chemistry work, but you have to give it a little bit of time. Now, I do think you got to get out. For the lady, what she was saying, you got to get out. I'm sorry. I was just talking to a friend of mine who is almost the same exact situation out there living in the DMV. And me and her were talking about it. And I was so proud of her because she actually did take me up on the concept of actually starting her own group or trying to talk to people at her church and trying to get those people to start to meet up at locations. And that is, again, remember, one of the things that I encourage you to do, because even as an introvert, you can actually say, hey, I'm going to try to start a group and we can meet up, to do bowling, or we can meet up to do something else. And sooner or later, you can, have more people come out. And you can even label your group, introverts, on the town or whatever it is. And you'll find out that you'll get more introverts that'll come out. And then through that, you can build that confidence, to, grow and grow and grow. And then you'll have more people that have your energy that will show up. Okay, so this is from another video. The lady says, I have a nurturing personality. I nurtured my ex-husband, but he used it against me as a weakness and still cheated on me. I don't think a lot of men really don't know what they want in a woman because a lot of them aren't mentally and emotionally mature enough to make sound decisions. And I would say, to a large degree, like I say, that's true. But that as a woman, that is what you're trying to vet. We got to get away in America, and especially in the Black community, of just saying that you want to find somebody that's cool and fall in love. The process of being married is partially a business deal. Okay. Yes, you want to like the person. Yes, you want to be attracted to the person, but part of it is a business deal. So you have to be thinking, okay, is this the type of person that will be with me forever and never cheat on me? Is this the type of person that I want to raise my children? Is this the type of person that I feel like, they have a plan and that plan is going to come to fruit to give me the life that I want? So there's so many things that you have to be thinking about, and it just can't be, oh, I find this man attractive and honestly, I want to sleep with him. It's got to be more than that. Because, see, that's how so many people get caught up. And I'm not saying that's what happened to you, but you have to think like that. And I'll admit, in my first marriage, I've only been married once, but in my first marriage, I really did marry more in that. And I married on a lot of assumptions. I just thought she would be this way. I thought it would work out this way. And that's one of the things that I've noticed with people that get married later, or they were married one time and then they get a divorce, is the second marriage, or like I say, a later marriage, people come in with more of a mindset of a business deal, recognizing that the person is bringing a few things to the table, quote unquote, on both sides. And it's all about what the company that's being built wants. So like for me, I've said it, earlier, I'm not looking for a woman to come in and try to do 50-50 with me. That's not important to me at all. I want a woman that is coming in, paying more attention to the family. But that being said, I understand from my perspective, there are things that I have to do and I have to be willing to do in order to take care of that. But I think both sides need to have those conversations. And I'm still very surprised that a lot of people don't. I was actually out this weekend at an event And I was sitting at a table with like four women and this one guy, and he was the one that invited me out. And as we were sitting around talking, I was telling the women that generally right after the first date, maybe after the second date, when I have a conversation with women, I will actually talk about the plan in which how I'm going to date them. I even tell them about the 90-day plan, the same one I tell you all. I asked them, like, I'll be real. I asked them, when was the last time you had an STD test? I go through all of that. And basically the women at the table, they were all kind of like, what? You have to talk about that? And I was like, heck yeah. Because to me, like I said, this is kind of like a business deal. I'm trying to find out, okay, what's your health? Because if your health ain't right, maybe at this point, this might be where we need to diverge before I start getting close to you or anything like that, or you start to get close to me. I need to know, what's your vision for the future? I need to know, do you want kids? How many kids do you want? Okay, when are you thinking about getting married? Okay, what does that plan look like? Okay, because if it's not, then we really have nothing else to talk about. And I'm telling you as a man, I'm like, look, I'm going to lead you. This is how I lead. And one of the first things is, over this next 90 days, this is when we're going to figure out whether or not we like each other. And then unless both of us say out of our mouths that we're in a relationship, we're not in a relationship. I've had women to believe that they were in a relationship with me after hanging out with me for 3 weeks. And I'm looking at them like, boo, we just dating. Nothing has happened yet. So I'm very clear. There's no secrets. The women know exactly what's going on. So if it ends or it continues, they know. And I try to give them an update generally about every month or so, in order, again, to keep them understanding the path. And I am going to evaluate, ask questions in the way that I do it. And like I did have a lady, like I said, one of the women I dated recently, and, she thought I should be asking more questions because she asked me a lot of questions. So she thought I should be asking her more questions. And I've had a couple women, ask that kind of stuff. But I'll be honest with you, there are certain questions I am going to ask because I want to know for sure. And I feel like there's no way that I'm going to be able to find that out by hanging out with you. But for me, a lot of my questions are going to be answered by the woman's behavior. Because at the end of the day, I want to hear what you have to say, but I also want to see what you do. So it's really a mix of both of them that I'm paying attention to. So a lot of my questions that are answered through the woman's behavior. Okay, so here's another lady. She got 4 thumbs up on this. And she says, what most men say is something different than what they actually pursue. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think that's on both sides, both men and women, because, I've seen it from a man's perspective. I've seen women will say, hey, I want this. And then the this is right in front of them. And then they ignore it. It's like the whole friend zoned guy thing. The friend zone guy is usually the good guy. He's the guy that will romance you, take care of you, be there for you. But a lot of women basically ignore him. All right. And sometimes they'll ignore an attractive friend zone guy. They just don't really like his vibe. So there's lots of different ways and reasons why, people do this. But I will say it is on both sides, just being real. So let's go to the next one. This one has 12 thumbs up. I don't have an issue with what the old guy said. I made my selection based off the same thought process. And that was a guy who was basically saying, men should find women that are nurturing. All right. And I was making the argument that it just depends upon the person. Some men want a nurturing woman. Some men want a woman that's going to be a boss chick. Some men want a woman, that's going to be more about the family. It just depends upon the guy. So back to this one. I don't have an issue with what the old guy said. I made up my selection based off the same thought process. I ended up with a selfless wife and a really good mother of our children. The dopamine concept, in my opinion, is superficial and isn't sustainable over a long period of time. Not to mention, the higher dopamine, the fewer red flags will be spotted. I could experience really good dopamine with a lady. However, none of our worldviews, values, and priorities actually line up. I support your effort and your content. Best wishes. So I appreciate that. Thank you for the support. But again, I think a lot of people have to recognize when I'm saying all of this, most of the time, my belief in what I'm doing in the videos is trying to give you different ways to see it. And that's really all it is. What I do in my own dating life many times is a little bit different than even what I taught. Like I was recently on with Pastor Ron, and as I was going through, it was funny, and this is what's prompted this video. A lot of people in the comments, were saying certain things, and I'm like laughing because they were kind of agreeing with Pastor Ron. And I agreed a lot with Pastor Ron, but there's no sense in us both being in a conversation and we're both saying the same thing. So at that point, I just started to play devil's advocate. And so that's the whole concept behind it. We always want to look at things from both sides, because if you don't, then it really narrows your worldview. And it can make it where you don't see some of the red flags or yellow flags or other green flags of things that are out here. All right. So like for me, I don't necessarily see it as a nurturing woman. I just see it as a family oriented woman. And that's more of what I want, for me personally. It's just trying to find a woman that is not, like I say, is not really career driven and success driven. She's not really after the money and the stuff and things like that. She's just more about, okay, how can I build a family? How can I, work my generations? Because to me, generational wealth is the real wealth. But that's my opinion. Okay, here it is. Sorry, I agree with what the man said in the video. Remember the man in the video was talking about nurturing woman. I appreciate your commentary, but I'm with him. What tends to prevent black women from getting married is that they take pride in doing the exact opposite of what men have saying that they like and value, and the women make excuses for why they can't provide the very things that men want. The black women who listen to men and conduct themselves accordingly will get the ring. The rest will be defiant and unconcerned with the men's grievances and standards and will die alone. That's the way I see it. And again, I agree with most of what he is saying, but again, I don't think he quite understood what I was saying in the video, because again, I'm not against men finding nurturing women. What I am saying is every man has different needs. So that's the point that I am trying to make. I've made so many videos out here and gone through so many comments that I've run into men that are making $50,000 a year and $60,000 a year, and they don't feel like they have the ambition to actually make any more. So for them, having a 50-50 woman is a wonderful thing. They love that. So the woman comes in, she's bringing 60, he has 60, and then now they can go have their really great life, right? But then you have other men that's not what they're looking for. So it's to understand that even on this platform, I'm not just talking to men like you, i.e., a person that might have that thought pattern, or women like, the person, have a certain thought pattern, but I'm talking about different people who have different thought patterns. And honestly, that's been the most difficult thing about having this particular channel, is because most people do better on channels where the thought pattern is always the same and it lines up to the way they think. And see, and I'll be honest, I've done a lot of videos where it was more about that. And as in the very beginning, a lot of my videos were more about just how I felt. And and that was great. And that was, like I said, it was cool. Like I said, I got a lot of people that were following me, but I felt over time that wasn't being fair to a lot of other people, especially looking for Christian information, or at least to listen to somebody else that's going through certain things and not ever to be able to see it from multiple points of view. So there is the man that is out there and he is looking for, I'll be honest, he's looking for the boss chick. That guy exists. And while that guy is not me, and definitely is not this particular guy that made the comment, that man does exist. And so we do need to at least acknowledge that man and acknowledge the boss chick that will probably marry that man. Okay, but like for you, for me, that's not what we're looking for. Okay, so here's one, a person that went 100% against me, but he has 6 thumbs up. This is a horrible analogy. This is the problem with the internet. Most content creators are not intelligent people. To be intelligent, you have to have the ability to synthesize vast amounts of information. You must have a history of intelligence and scoring high on standardized tests. Most of the people who give opinions are not intelligent at all. And I bet if you go back and look at the grades and test scores of what they studied, you'll see a pattern of average or below average intellect. What that guy said in the opening video is 100% true and accurate. Most men should want a woman who obeys, submit, and respect him. Yet Jake goes on this ridiculous take about personality type, which is a philosophy. Yet you claim to be Christian. The Bible says in Colossians 2:8, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. All women are commanded to submit and obey men, period. So again, first of all, to whoever this is, I never said women shouldn't submit and obey. In fact, I have several videos that talk about submission and being obedient. Another thing about me being intelligent, I'll be honest with you, I graduated top of my class. Okay, so if you want to talk about intelligence, I'm extremely intelligent. But again, like I said, and I think what might have happened to lead you into this comment is you're not looking at it from multiple points of view. And that is what the video does. And that's what generally I do in most of my video. I do appreciate you, for coming out. I do appreciate you watching the video, but I'm just going to be real. And I've said that, like I said, multiple times, even before I got to your comment, is that I'm always looking at things from different points of view. So I do consider myself a decently intelligent person. I don't think I'm necessarily the most intelligent person in the world, but the way I talk to people out here on the internet is I'm talking to them believing that I'm the person that's watching the video. And for me, growing up, I have a very specific personality, and my personality lines up with about 2 to 3%, of the people in the world. And I throw up all the personalities all the time from Myers-Briggs. And, these are people that are basically talking about different ways in which people think. And for me, I always like it when people do tell me about different points of view, because I find that certain things work for some people and some things work for other people. And I find because most of us live within a mindset of only our point of view, and we never see anything from anybody else's point of view. And through that process, we ignore what other people are going through. And that's most people. That's how honestly I was all the way up until about 4 or 5 years ago. I was exactly that way. I didn't understand why people couldn't get their life right. I understand why they were falling into traps over here and falling into traps over there. But the more I started to study their personality, the more I started to understand, this is how this works. But again, I've said nothing against submission. I 100% believe that that women should allow a man to lead. I throw it up on the screen all the time. So again, maybe you're a new person that just came to my channel and didn't understand because you're looking at one video and you're trying to take all this information and lock it into one video. But again, like I said, I thank you. Hey, it is what it is. Not everybody's going to like it. And I've always said that. But if you want to come on and you want to debate and talk about things, I do that too. And I try to be open and honest and friendly. I never try to throw anybody under the bus. My thing is always to talk about information and get good information out here. Okay, so for this one, this was one of the videos with me and Apostle Fabian, also known as Pastor Ron. And, a lot of people in the beginning, they were just basically saying, thank you for the podcast. And, I appreciate the commentary. And trying to see somebody that was against one of us or something like that. Somebody says, me and Apostle Fabian have good chemistry and recommend having him on. Somebody else basically says, another great lesson. I love how, you talked about Leah from the Bible. So that's another one. All right. So here's another person in the middle says the brother basically talking about Pastor Ron was speaking some facts. Too many women who say they're godly pick like worldly women, especially when it comes to height and money. And what was really funny about that was one of the first videos I put out, I think it was like the 5th video, that literally was the video. Why do Christian women pick like the world? And I remember when I put that out, I got no love from that particular video. And it over time, even as the channel grew, some of my older videos, would get more love, because people would come to the channel. They want to see other stuff that I've talked about. And that never got any love. And it was one of those things that's really interesting because what I find is that people, what they do is they really do lean toward what they want out of life, but then they add the Christian energy on top. So actually dating as a Christian is more difficult than dating as the world, because you still have to have all the worldly things. And then on top of it, be Christian. And it really shouldn't be that way. But again, that's how it is most of the time. Okay, so here's some more. No, from experience, this is a lady, dating down is dangerous. No matter how much you love and support a guy who earns less, he will always try to put you in your place. They will hate you for seeing them earning less and not working. They will accuse you of cheating and leaving. The insecurities, the jealousy, the abuse. No, it doesn't matter how. It matters how much a woman makes. There are exceptions, of course, but no man. There are exceptions, of course, but a man will not appreciate a woman earning more. That's why we don't do it. And I think that was more towards Pastor Ron, because Pastor Ron was basically saying that there's a lot of women out here that make a lot of money, and he feels that a lot of women should be paying attention to men, even though men might not have the money or the resources. They're godly and they're doing everything that God said. And I've talked about that a little bit, off and on myself, because I do believe, that there are exceptions, just like this lady said, that there are exceptions. And so women should at least pay attention to that. But I do agree with this woman as a general rule. It generally doesn't work. But that's what a lot of people have been talking about, honestly, in these dating spaces for a long period of time. And, the red pill community talks about it a lot. And it basically just being real. It's like the more money a woman makes, the fewer men she can date. Those two things go hand in hand. And there's no way really around it. And it's because of the general rule. I mean, it was a lady that just said it. It's generally a general rule. So if a woman is educated, she's got, and I don't ever necessarily think the education leads always to money. But when you are putting yourself in that position where you're knocking on six figures or you're above, you're in that place where maybe 20% of men exist. And I've always tried to tell black women that's 20% of men, period. Okay. And so it really creates this narrative where it becomes extremely difficult for those women. And just like, I talked about earlier for myself, my main concern is a woman pointing her energy towards the family. So if a woman is a teacher or if she has another job, like I say, that she's built up on her own and she's making $100,000, but she can spend most of her time paying attention to the children, that works for me. But if a woman has a high power job and she's always gone and she's always doing things, for me personally, that doesn't really work, because I want her to spend her time towards the children. So even though I might be able to date some women in the top 25%, based off my 9 to 5, it doesn't necessarily mean I would. And see, that makes it even more difficult for a lot of women at that level, because they really want to continue with their job and then meet the man up there that will really want that. And see, that is even more of the problem, because like I said, when you're a man and you're up there and now you're dating 80% of the women, okay, while women are dating 20% of the men. And so that's really where the issue comes in. Okay, so here's somebody else. Says, you're generalizing as usual. I know plenty of sisters that will be willing to build with a man to their detriment. And then another somebody else says, exactly. Well, again, you can't, well, it's like I said, I can't really go into everybody's vision about what everybody's going to do. There are definitely places where I take hard stances on things, but I always look at it, like I say, from different sides of the coin. So that's all I can really say on that. Thank you for watching, and let's move on. Okay, so here's somebody else. It says, great convo. I believe Christian men should find wives that they love with the passion of Christ, like Ephesians 5:25 through 33. Popping the red pill is dangerous because men are discussing the exact opposite in that space, and what they seem as bitter as red dye. Yeah, and so I'm kind of agreeing with that. See, I've been, like I said, I played around the red pill space. Like I've said before, I was out there, at the very beginning, before, right after my divorce. I think it's so easy to get out there, because you're coming out of a relationship, you're upset with women, and you're looking, for pain. And the Bible talks about that. So it is what it is. But what I learned very quickly was that a lot of those men seem to not get over their pain. They never seem to get over it. And that was the issue. They never seem to get over it. It's like they go deeper and deeper and deeper into that pain without really, getting out of it. And let's be real. I mean, even when people start talking about Kevin Samuels, Kevin Samuels died literally either under or on top of a woman. So Kevin was actively dating. He had lots of videos where he was out with women. Now, he said, okay, the woman has to be this, she has to be this, she has to be this. But he never stopped dating. He never stopped, talking to women. Now, whether he would have married again or not, who knows? Okay, but the man never stopped dating. And see, that's one of the things about the red pill space that's very interesting to me, because a lot of red pill men will push this narrative that they're not going to date women anymore. Yet, I've never really seen some of the higher level people in that space stop dating. They're still out there. Now, they're looking for a specific type of woman, but again, they're still out there. And what I'm always trying to say is, you as a man need to know what type of woman you want. And you need to understand the pros and cons of that woman and go after that woman. Like I've said it before, some of the prettiest women in Atlanta are some of the ones that I avoid, with the utmost. Because as soon as they start talking about me spending a lot of money on them, or all the trips they want to go on, or how they want to pop bottles, I'm done. And just like what Kevin Samuels was like, like I said earlier in this video, since I brought him up, he says a woman has 3 times to say that she's independent before he's gone. Well, that's the whole point. And I've been saying that since like 7 months ago. Every man should have a set of rules and regulations that he is looking for the women that he is dating. Okay, and you shouldn't necessarily have to ask the woman, because I do find a couple of men do that. They'll ask the woman about the rules and regulations. Women do that too, and I don't understand why y'all do that. You ask certain questions that there's no way in the world you could find out any other way. But then the rest of the time, you just watch their behavior. Okay, because their behavior is going to tell you what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. So it's a mixture of both, right? And so for me, it's like I was sitting at the table. We're talking about it. Like I said in another part of this video, I told them straight up, when I talk to women, I am the leader. That's it. Okay, now if you don't like the word submission, you can use the word leader. If a woman comes to me, she says she wants 50-50 power in the relationship, it's over. It's done. We're not going to go further. And this is a conversation that I'm going to have, like I said, generally between the day I meet her all the way maybe to 2.5 weeks in. I'm going to have that conversation. I'm not about to argue you back and forth off of what you believe something should be. Now, I will tell the woman or encourage the woman, hey, you can try me to see whether or not I'm good in what I say. But the bottom line is, if she's not willing to submit, it's a no. Okay, if she doesn't have some of the things that I'm looking for, it's a no. And I've told you, most of the time, I'm saying no. And see, that's the same thing that Kevin Samuels was saying. That's the same thing that Ron Wills is saying. That's the same that a lot of things that people are saying in the red pill community are saying. But it's funny how I can get out here and I try to be balanced with the information, and then people, they don't see any of the main hardcore things that I'm trying to say. They try to lean it into, oh, you're generalizing. Oh, you're being soft on these women. Oh, you're being soft on these men, or whatever. No. As a man, okay, you need to know what you want. And you need to go into that relationship. You could do it in a nice way. But I've said over and over and over again, and like I said, you could probably go through 10 videos and you'll probably hear me say it at least once or twice, where I will say, you lead like Jesus. But I always give examples of how Jesus led. Jesus bent over backwards for the disciples. He will put the disciples' needs before his own. And you see it over and over again. in Matthew. And I've always said, do what? Read Matthew and Proverbs. If you can't read nothing else in the Bible, read Matthew and Proverbs. They'll bless your life. And go back and forth with each one of them until you're very comfortable with almost everything that is said in those two books of the Bible. But you see it with Jesus. Boom. He will feed you. He'll take care of you, all this other kind of stuff. But when he wants you to do something, he'll be like, I want you two to pair off. Y'all go to this city. Y'all go to this city. Y'all go to this city. Well, Jesus, we don't want to do it. Then get away from me. Oh, I want to follow you, but let me go bury my dad. No, you follow me now or you go away from me. Well, Jesus, can I just? No, you do what I say now or you get away from me. Jesus was not playing with people. Jesus was basically saying, my word is law and you do what I tell you to do. And he even talked about it. How can you say, that you call me Lord, Lord, and you won't do what I say? Jesus had no problem with saying that. Even if everybody left him, he was okay with that. Because he was like, this is what it's going to be. But being under Jesus's rule was the best place you could be because he's going to take care of you. And see, that's how it is when I'm dating women. I take care of them. I don't have a problem with saying that. I'll do for them. But when I tell them I need you to do X, Y, Z, I don't plan for them to be looking at me like, what? No, I said go do X, Y, Z. Now, you know I got your back. And I'm willing to show you in the beginning of a relationship that I got your back. But there is a point where you have to, as a woman, line up to the authority that I have and the fact that I am going to take care of you. So therefore, you do what I say. And again, this is not like me being mean and all this other kind of stuff like I'm making it out right now on the internet. But at the same time, when I deal with women that are just like, no, I want 50-50. No, I can't have no man ruling over me. Then find your man. Go out there and find him. Okay? Because, I don't want to stop you, from finding your perfect man. But, and that's why it's always funny to me, when people, some of the comments. So here's the last one. So for you, Jay, if you could find a great woman, but of a different race, and she loves you, respects you, and trusts your leadership, why would you not marry her? And I actually did reply to him, but then he says again, is she someone you would consider for marriage if God presented her to you? And I've said this actually in a couple other videos. I don't care about race or culture, to be honest with you. I've never tried to say that anybody has to stay within their race. I've even talked about how I really have nothing against passport bros. If passport bros want to get out there and they want to find their person, do it. I really don't care if you're male or female. I say do it. I really don't have an issue. The only issue I've ever said is, are you really paying attention to everybody in your own culture before you jump cultures? Okay, because you're going to run into a few problems when you're in another culture. I'm just going to be real with that. So because of that, are you really looking at everybody? Like one of the things that I see with a lot of black women, and maybe this is just the black women that have been around me that have married white men, is that they generally come into two categories. Either they're artists, the white guy is an artist, maybe he plays a saxophone, or maybe he's a singer, or maybe he likes to dance or paints or something like that. Or the guy is a nerd. He's basically an intellectual. He's a nerd. And when you look at the black community, there's a lot of black men that are nerds that get looked past all the time. And you have a lot of black artists, if they're not rappers or singers, they get looked beyond. So the very people that a lot of black people, literally black community, bypasses, and I'm not the only person that's talked about this. There's been other black, people online that have talked about this. Those are the main people that get looked over. So as a black woman, it's like, have you even considered those men before you jump out and say, well, there's no men in my race? And like I've talked about it being an intellectual, is that I myself run into that issue. Like I said, I was just at an event the other day, and I'm up there. This is one of the first events in Atlanta after the snow. So it was a decent amount of people there. And it was honestly a decent amount of black women there. But there were white women and there was Asian women. And just being real, I wanted to try to talk to some of the black women, but they really weren't feeling me. I mean, I could tell just by the energy. And I've even talked a little bit about energy, but I'm not about to go into it today. But, they just really weren't feeling me. I just say it like that. And so right next to me, it was like some white women. It was another woman of a different race. And we started to talk, and they was like giving me every single choosing sign, and they were not black. And so for me, I don't care. I really don't. If I find you attractive and you are doing what, I want, you to do, and you're willing to come to that place, I'm like, cool. I'll date you. And I know a lot of black women don't really like that. In fact, we had talked about that on one of the Zoom lives recently. I generally record these at least a week before you all see them. But we had a Zoom, recently. And, that came up in the Zoom because that Zoom was about interracial relationships. And so it was a couple women that was upset, when I was talking about the fact that I would consider dating, and marrying outside of my race, because a lot of black women, I think they feel that that's kind of a slap, to them. But it's not. It's really not. When I am out here and I'm looking for women, okay, I'm looking for a woman that lines up with what I want. And so if a black woman finds me and lines up with what I want, then she's going to get the quote unquote bag. That's how that works. Okay. But if black women aren't positioning themselves to get into that spot, or they're not the type of woman that I'm going to lean myself into because of some other drama or whatever that they have, and then I can find a white woman or Asian woman or an Indian woman or a Latino woman that fits the bill, and she does exactly what I'm looking for her to do, then that's where I'm going. It's almost like, because I talk even about age, and I've said it before, like I'm in my 40s. So I generally date women in their 30s. And so I run into, black women that don't like that. They don't like the fact, that I might date 10 years younger than me, or even sometimes I've dated 15, 20 years younger. I mean, the biggest age gap I've had has been 20 years. And if I find my person and my person's 20 years younger than me, then that's cool. And people, again, they make the argument and say, well, you're not going to have anything in common. And again, I laugh at this stuff because, again, this is just hearsay stuff. When you look at, like I said, and I know, like I said, the guy before didn't like personalities and stuff, but I'm sorry, that's my jam. So, it is what it is. That's how it is on this particular channel. So when I look at personality, heart types, okay, those are the ones that, I bring up all the time, the heart, instinct, and the thinking types. A thinking type is the same throughout all generations. A heart type is the same throughout all generations. An instinct type is the same throughout all generations. So the type that I like, I don't care if she's Myers-Briggs, I don't care if she's whatever little personality test that you know about. Every generation has the same personality. The only difference is she'll be in a slightly different culture. That's it. And for me to date a woman 10 years younger than me, her culture is different. But and I'll admit that it's slightly different. It's American, but it might be slightly different. But that could be the same thing if I went and I married somebody from the UK, or I married somebody from Italy, or I married somebody, from Africa. It's like, it's going to be a slightly different culture. So there's things that we will have to deal with in that culture. But even if I go 20 years younger, okay, again, it's just slightly different things in that culture that now we have to deal with. All right. And I'll be honest, and I've said this for a lot of black women, is that I wish more black women, honestly, in their early 20s would consider dating men 7 to 10 years older, because they'll get more out of it. Now, recently I did a video, you guys haven't seen it yet, but it's coming soon, that I did with Humble Dad. And Humble Dad does not believe in age gap relationships. And you'll see that, when we talk about it. But for me, I 100% do believe in age gap relationships. I believe that will fix a lot of the problems that we have, and it works better for women. Because while women might spend the end of their life maybe alone, if everybody lives to 90, okay, if the husband and wife both live to 90, yeah, the woman will spend maybe 10 years of her life, by herself, but she'll still be surrounded by her children. versus, women trying to figure it out. Okay, and then we go back and forth with this game of money and, is a woman attractive enough, and we go back and forth, and now you end up in these situations where now people are getting married at 30, and yeah, the age might be closer, but you've wasted so many years, at that point. And if you're a woman that's not career driven, all that extra work on your job and stuff like that is not really helpful. So now again, you really kind of missed the bigger life that you could have had. And so to me, especially when I'm looking at women right now and seeing so many women, getting married, if they even get married, they're getting married after 32. Okay. And then even then, a lot of them are still marrying men 10 years older because those are the men ready to get married. So it doesn't really help. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't really help the situation. And so for me, my encouragement is for women to at least consider it. But I always say that you have to vet the men. A man that is 18, 28, 38, 48, all of them can be the best guy in the world, or all of them can be the worst guy in the world. So I think you always have to vet. But like I say, for me, I'm open for age gaps. I am open for different cultures. I am open for all that different type of stuff. If I find a really great woman, she's, she can get it. I mean, that's just what it is, but she still has to do what she has to do. And she has to kind of line up with, the vision of my train as I go down these tracks. All right. So that's just kind of how I feel. So guys out there, I'm like, find who likes you, because that's really what it is. You need to like the people that like you. And so for me, if I'm around the type of black woman that will like an intellectual man, okay, cool. And that can work out. But if it ends up being another type of woman, that's fine too. It'll work out. So anyway, like I said, I'll probably be doing these types of videos more because I do think it's good to kind of go through the comments, talk about different things and actually be able to answer some of the bigger questions directly. Anyway, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.